Good morning, Trump's family. Welcome back to my channel. Have a good day, everyone, and God bless you. Alright, let's get into the news this Monday morning. How many times did we hear the talking heads say those exact words? How many times were we told just how incredibly likable and popular Uncle Joe was, and is? Well, it turns out that not only is Joe Biden not the most popular president in American history, it turns out that he's so deeply unpopular that even his own damn party wants nothing to do with him. And not just the voters, but the candidates as well. Joe Biden has become such a pariah. Joe Biden has become such bad political omen. It's almost as if the man is cursed, and nobody wants that curse to be passed on to them. Of course, we're talking about Ohio Democrat Tim Ryan explicitly stating that he doesn't want Joe Biden to come to his state. And funny enough, just the other day, Joe Biden was asked about this. And well, his response was just it was something else really eloquently said really had me thinking. Alright, folks. So a little bit of context. Here's Tim Ryan, when he was asked if Joe Biden should come visit his state to campaign for him. He said, "No, I'm not. And I'm really not inviting anybody." Well, Tim Ryan joins the extremely long list of Democrats who don't want Joe Biden to be anywhere near them. And like I stated in the intro, Joe Biden was asked about this. Have Democrats continue to push him away? Wow. This president has a real way with words now, doesn't he? Just beautifully said. How would thrill? What did this guy just say? What this, ladies and gentlemen, is the president of the United States. This guy, he actually can't speak English. His brain falls apart. Look in his eyes. What is he doing? He looks possessed. He's lost, dazed, and confused and can't speak English. No wonder even Democrats don't want anything to do with this guy. He's a disaster. If you're a Democrat, bringing this guy into campaign for you is possibly the worst tactical decision that you can make, especially in some of these states. Do you really blame Tim Ryan? A Democrat running in deep red Ohio, at least nowadays deep red, Ohio. I think Trump won by 8 points if I'm not mistaken. Why would anybody in their right mind want this guy to come campaign for them? It can't possibly end well. What could this guy possibly add to your campaign? And the only person so far who's taken Joe Biden's help and called on him to join the campaign trail is none other than Pennsylvania Democrat John Fetterman. And well, not exactly a good luck, didn't really end well. I guess the Fetterman camp strategy here might have been something along the lines of bringing in Joe because Joe was so mentally depleted that he might make John Fetterman look somewhat decent and cognitively aware, but as I stated, it didn't exactly end well. They did a campaign stop together. And apparently John Fetterman didn't even speak a word. We've got this from the post-millennial breaking. John Fetterman doesn't speak at event with Biden in PA. Joe took the stage, and John Fetterman just kind of stood there awkwardly and didn't say a single word. This is like the bad news bears, folks. What is this team? What is going on? What is the argument that these are the people who should be in positions of power? Senator Kennedy, who suffered a severe debilitating stroke, suffered damage to his brain and his cognitive function, cannot process auditory sounds and cannot speak properly. And this president who is basically in the same boat due to old age. How did the Fetterman campaign think that this was going to be a good idea? Joe Biden took the stage, and while he was just so convincing, what a salesman pitching Democratic candidate John Fetterman to Pennsylvania voters. And who's in charge here? Who is going to be the senator? Is it John Fetterman? Or is it John Fetterman, his wife? So far, it seems as though his wife is more in the spotlight than he is. His whole thing is like a cringe comedy skit. It's like an episode of The Office. Except it'd be a whole lot more funny if it wasn't so serious. To move away from the whole Fetterman thing and get on the topic at large here, what we were talking about, what we were discussing, this whole Biden presidency thing has run its course, folks. It's clearly over. The guy's clearly done. Democrats have absolutely no choice but to remove this guy by 2024. Whether that's impeaching him, whether that's using the 25th Amendment, whatever it is, he's done. It's over. He's losing to Donald Trump. And if he doesn't resign, if he doesn't step back, the Democrats are going to do it by force. They're going to use any means necessary to replace this guy. And it's really no surprise to anyone. How is this real? Just sticking on the whole comical thing. Joe Biden is basically Steve Carell from Bruce Almighty. This whole thing was doomed from the beginning, except the copy of Democrats somehow convinced themselves that this was going to end well for them. Well, clearly it isn't. And the greatest endorsement to that fact is very clearly that Democrats want nothing to do with this guy with good reason. Because he's a walking, talking disaster. He's a political curse. Everywhere he goes, everything he touches, it all turns to not a single high-profile Democrat in any of the most important races heading into the midterms want to come near this guy with a 10-foot pole. Frankly, more of 100-mile pole. It's almost to the extent where these Democratic candidates are filing for restraining orders against this guy. Well, you know what? The American people probably feel the same way. And heading into the next 2 elections, those ballots are essentially going to be metaphorical restraining orders against the Joe Biden criminal regime. Everyone, including Democrats, are thinking and saying the same thing: get this guy away from me, and certainly get them away from our children. Like I stated earlier, folks, the Joe Biden regime has played its course. This little experiment in history is over. People have had enough, and it's going to have some long-lasting effects in the political world. The Democrats are not just going to snap back from this, my prediction. It's going to take some time for them to recover. I'd say it's all shocking, crazy, surprising, but of course, I'm desensitized. None of this stuff is surprising. Welcome to Clown World, where Joe Biden. This is some big news. So many different signs all pointing to the same exact thing in the same direction: the total and absolute collapse of the Democrat establishment ahead of this election, folks. We've been covering it all, we've been talking about everything. And here's another one to add to the list. Democrats have been pretending that they're competitive in all kinds of races, and over the last couple of election cycles, they've been saying how they're competitive in Florida and competitive in Texas. Well, both of the Democrat challengers that were supposedly heavyweights taking on Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott, both of their campaigns have officially imploded this time. The main focus is going to be on Charlie Crist, who frankly ended his campaign a while ago. I mean, the literal moment he picked a communist sympathizer as his running mate, it was over. But folks, it's officially over for Charlie Crist, and I'm gonna show you guys exactly what I mean by that. And we're gonna cover all kinds of other governor races as well, all trending in the same direction. Alright, so the copine has been real. Democrats have just been unable to accept the fact that Florida is now a Republican stronghold. I mean, thanks to their doing, but it's just the reality. They've been saying Val Demings is gonna take on Marco Rubio, not gonna happen. They've been saying that Charlie Crist is going to take on Ron DeSantis. Yeah, you know, zero charisma. Charlie Crist is going to take on the most popular governor in recent history. I mean, give me a break. Well, that narrative didn't exactly age well. In fact, that narrative has completely imploded. Charlie Crist loses campaign manager 3 weeks before election as DeSantis surges. Charlie Crist has lost his campaign manager just 3 weeks before the election for Florida governor. A spokeswoman for Crist announced that Austin Durer has departed the campaign to focus on a family matter now. That I highly doubt, I'll tell you guys, would really happen. Early voting in Florida has started, and as Scott Pressler is reporting every single day on the numbers, it's not looking good for Democrats. As of this morning, here's how many people have already voted by mail: 399,000 Republican ballots and 437 Democrat ballots. Democrats should be hitting the panic button early. In-person voting begins on Monday in most counties, and they barely have a lead in VBM. Here's another Twitter user who gives us the numbers: early voting Democrat advantage at this point in 2020 versus 2022. The Democrat advantage in California is down 13%, Florida 20%, and Pennsylvania 12%. Early voting has already begun where you'd expect to see a massive Democrat surge. Well, it's just not materializing. Meanwhile, Republican voter turnout is blasting, it's surging. And so clearly the writing's on the wall that Charlie Crist and most of these other high-profile Democrats in the state of Florida don't stand a chance. And so his campaign manager is clearly cutting his losses and ditching the campaign because he doesn't want to be the face of this massive L. That's what's really going on here. Democrats are waking up and realizing that it's about to be real bad. And I mean, real bad for them. And based on the early ballot data that we're seeing in Florida and other states, it's bringing us right back to that election fundamental that turnout is the most important thing, and it's happening pretty much exactly as expected. Republican voter turnout is going to be massive. Meanwhile, Democrats are clearly lagging behind. Not only are they losing on the issues, Not only are they losing in terms of voter registration trends, but they're also losing in enthusiasm. This is a trifecta, folks. It's a triple threat. It's the perfect storm for a red tsunami, the likes of which hasn't been seen in a generation, and the idea that Democrats ever stood a chance in the state of Florida against a literal superstar and Ron DeSantis was laughable since the start. I mean, everywhere Ron DeSantis goes he's a star. This guy thought he could take on Ron DeSantis, this guy who just showed up at the most recent Leonard Skinner concert and was received like this. Right, Nancy Pelosi shows up at a concert, gets booed into oblivion. Jill Biden shows up at the Philadelphia Eagles Stadium, gets booed into oblivion. Ilhan Omar shows up at a concert in her own Somali district, a cultural Somali concert, mind you, gets booed into oblivion. Ron DeSantis. Everywhere he goes, it's a standing ovation, and they really thought they stood a chance. The reality is you never did. You don't have a platform to stand on. How you supposed to take on Ron DeSantis? I mean, for Pete's sakes, everything's been going so well in the state of Florida. People are so happy with his leadership. I mean, what was Charlie Christian as communist running mate? Even running on their talking points have been completely abysmal. Actually, here's a great example from this week. Carla Hernandez Matz, which is Charlie Chris's running mate, posts video of the banned books and deletes it within 20 minutes. Does it get any more desperate and disingenuous than that? As if that's the reason that book got banned. Absolutely disgusting. I mean, despicable stuff. It backfired instantaneously. She was forced to delete the video 20 minutes after release. And it's yet again another embarrassing moment for these Democratic acts who are getting absolutely BTFO across the nation. But of course, as I was alluding in the intro, it's not just in the state of Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis seems to be the model. Governor Ron DeSantis is what people are looking at and saying, man, why can't we have a leader like that? You know, it's almost like that jealous girlfriend meme. Let me create it really quick. People are looking at Florida, looking at Ron DeSantis, and thinking to themselves, man, I want me some of that. And folks, to me, it seems as if we are seeing the Ron DeSantis effect as Republican gubernatorial candidates are surging across the board. The most recent poll in Michigan has tutored Dixon within 2 points of Gretchen Whitmer. Of course, we all know what's happening in Oregon, where a Republican candidate might pull off an upset victory. We all know what's happening in Arizona with Kari Lake further extending her lead against Katie Hobbs, but probably most stunning is this last-minute Lee Zeldin surge in the state of New York, with this new coefficient poll for the New York governor race showing Lee Zeldin 1 point ahead of Kathy Hochul. I mean, this is while Deep Blue, New York might be on the verge of electing a Republican, and this is after the Buffalo shooting and all of the phony activism that we've been seeing from the left. Their response, after all, the gun control activism, is to move right and possibly be on the verge of electing a Republican candidate as their governor. That is wild. It's the Ron DeSantis effect, folks. People can vote for Democrat presidents. But when it comes to the governor of their state, or when it comes down ballot, they're looking towards Republicans. It doesn't exactly make sense. I mean, the federal government is basically like running one big state instead of a small state. People want Republicans running their state but Democrats running the federal state. It's completely ridiculous. But anyways, we're seeing a Republican surge in gubernatorial elections that is causing left-wing brains to explode. All the hopium and COPM have were turning these states blue is slowly dying in front of their eyes. They were convincing themselves that Georgia is now a blue state. Stacey Abrams is getting clobbered. They were saying the same thing about Texas is going to turn blue. They kept saying, well, Mr. Beto O'Rourke, Robert Francis O'Rourke, is trailing Texas Governor Greg Abbott by over 10 points. Ron DeSantis continues to extend his lead as well. Charlie Crist, his campaign manager, just GTFO. Democrat electoral hopes and dreams are slowly crumbling before our very eyes, and I am simply here for it. You gotta love it, and boy, I certainly do. Thank you very much. WWG1WGA. Give me your thoughts below.